Okay, welcome back. We're moving on. We're on page 458, talking about the production. This is where you actually create the content. Go out and get the photographs, get the copy, and start putting things together. So this is where you pick your authoring tool you're going to use. You know, whether you're using, Visual Studio or God only knows whatever. You're actually picking the tools you're going to do. Go buy the authoring tools that you need. Organize your site files. Most likely you're not going to have everything just dumped. You're probably going to be talking about, maybe you've got some sort of corporate division, and so there's a logical break, and so you have, refrigerators over here in a folder, and Samsung makes refrigerators and microwaves and phones. Those things are completely different. So maybe you want to have separate folders for all that stuff. Okay, so creating the content, organizing the content that you have, and then testing things individually. Now you have like one little piece you're working on. This is called unit testing. We're going to be talking about testing in just a second. But unit testing is where I have a single page and I'm working on it. I'm going to make sure that page works. Cool. So that's unit testing. There's other types of testing we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay. And once again, you really kind of need to be talking about, circling back to, am I accomplishing the goal that I'm supposed to do? Once again, every single one of these things you ought to be talking about, did I do what I was supposed to do? Because when you get on down here to evaluation, okay, and you find out there's no way in heck this thing is going to increase my sales by 22%, that's a little late in the game to be saying, wow, dang, we missed the mark. There's no way in heck this thing's going to work to accomplish that goal. So you need to be reminding yourself what the goal is every single step of the way. In the software world, there's a thing called requirements tracking, where you got together and brainstormed all the things that this new software was supposed to do, and you would put them in a tracking system, because it's pretty doggone easy, believe it or not, to get all the way through the cycle. And then someone says, hey, I was looking over our notes from our meeting from last year, and it says that this thing was supposed to do this. Is that working? And everybody goes, oh, no, we've got all about that. Well, okay. So, yeah, you need to be circling back a lot. Okay. On page 458, it's also talk about testing. So testing is complex. System testing means you're testing the whole thing now. Unit testing is just one little piece, make sure it works. And then system testing is the whole thing. Okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you got to check. Some of it can be automated, like checking for dead links in your website. People just don't do that by hand. You just get a piece of software that does that for you. Okay, cool. But you need to be testing different browsers to make sure they all work. Different screen resolutions, different bandwidths. Does it work when I'm in a really, really slow environment? Other PCs, don't ever develop your website using this one PC and then test it on the very same PC, because most likely it's already got all the parts it needs. You need to go to somebody else's machine and test it to see if it comes up and says, hey, you're missing a such and such. You go, oh yeah, well, I didn't know that. So don't just test on the same machine you developed on. Cool. Mobile devices, of course. And then there's this little test plan. This is actually pretty doggone good. It talks about, here's a system of most of the browsers, and here's the screen resolutions. You tried it on a PC, on a Mac, on a Linux, and whether or not you have images disabled or CSS disabled, and even the JAWS screen reader, for accessibility, in tablets and smartphones, and did I do the validation and CSS and spelling and all the rest of the stuff, alt tags and hyperlinks and blah 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 blah. So this is actually pretty cool. They even go in talking about search engine optimization, which is going to come up a little bit later. And, how long does it take for these pages to load? This is actually a pretty doggone thing. It's a good checklist to go through and say, did you test on all these things? Okay. And the testing kind of goes on concurrent with the development, design, implementation phase. These are not just, it's not like, okay, we're done now. Now it's time to test. No, of course not. They go on the same kind, because somebody's going to run across something where it doesn't work under Chrome, and you're going to have to go, oh, okay, and you have to go back and fix it. So, I mentioned automated testing. Yes, there's an awful lot of things. You've done this. You've done this with the HTML validation and the CSS validation. You didn't do that by hand. You know, copied and pasted your code in some website, and it came back and told you. Okay, cool, same. Accessibility testing. Likewise, there is some accessibility testing software out there, websites you can go to. But you have to remember Section 508 and the web standards themselves, the web content accessibility guides. Those guys are a little bit more difficult, but yes, you can go to websites and they'll tell you whether or not you've met those requirements. Performance testing and load testing. So you might think, well, this works great. There's no problem at all. But you're the only one on. Okay, what if I had 10,000 people on the web page simultaneously doing it? So how the heck do you test under a constrained environment? Well, there's actually software out there that are load simulators that you set up and you make it basically pound on your website so you can see what it looks like when everyone is logged on all at the same time. Okay, so this is good stuff because you can't just test in a perfect environment. Well, yeah, I came in at night on Saturday night at 10 o'clock and my web pages went just fine. There's no performance problem. Like, dude, really? How about Monday morning? So yes, you need to have some load testing. And then usability testing. And usability testing typically talks about, getting a group of volunteers and saying, here, give them a little score sheet and say, go through and tell us what you think about this. They talk about, here's some of the things that are on one of those score sheets if you were interested. How intuitive is the website? Can I just figure it out by myself? Does it make sense? The ease of learning, is it really tough to figure it out? And then if I did, what's the memorability? How's that for a crazy word? Okay, I figured it out, but is it easy to remember that when I go back the second time? Is it easy for me to go, oh yeah, I remember how to do that? Or yeah, I know where this is. The efficiency of use, how many clicks did it take me to get to where I wanted to go? A classic example of that is, if you were to go to like NVIDIA website, most likely, okay, I'm making this up, I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and say this. Most likely the vast majority of the traffic to the NVIDIA website is not potential customers looking to buy an NVIDIA card. It's not. It's most likely people who already own an NVIDIA graphics card and they're going to get a new updated driver. Okay? So, how should I design my website? Should I design my website so that in your face advertisements for the new product? Or should I have a very prominent link on the front page saying, download latest drivers here? Okay, just telling you. So yeah, usability. So, was there any errors? And that was another thing that they could tell you. And then finally, some sort of a subjective rating. A scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with this design? So that's good stuff. Launch. I'm going to go back to this guy. So now that I've done my testing, I'm ready to launch the web page. So launching the web page basically makes it go live. In the real world, you have you actually have two websites. You have the production website and the dev website, so that while you're working on this, you're not making changes to the live one over here. So for example, I had previous setup where you have the live database and you had the dev web. And so when you made changes over here, it had to go off to the lawyers and the security people to get blessed before you could copy it over to the live. So you don't just take it and say, okay, now we're done. You actually develop two websites, the one that's currently being used, the production one, and then you have a second one there for development. But this is where you publish your page, and you probably want to turn on an awful lot of the analytics to watch the types of people and the times of day. There's a fantastic system out there already called Google Analytics. Now, there's several different versions of Google Analytics, but basically what we're talking about is some way of analyzing your data. And let me tell you, I did this on my website years ago. And the way it works is you say, yeah, I'd like you to analyze the traffic to my website. And so they'll give you a little code that you go and you create a meta tag inside your web page to put that in there. And that's basically giving them authorization, so to speak. And then they'll scan your website and produce you this report. And the report is fantastic. It's telling you what areas of the country, where on the globe these people, the times of day, what kind of browsers they're using, how long they're staying, what it is they're doing. All this stuff and now it gives you, search engine optimization. Talks about, was this the person's first choice when they did a search? Did they find you at the top of the list, or were you on page 2? That kind of stuff. So yes, fantastic. Most of this is free from Google. There are people who do search engine optimization for a living and they charge money. But this is good information. If you ever wanted to know how are people using your website, for example, I had no idea that 20% of people using my website were speaking French, for example, and I didn't have a French version of the website up and running. So yeah, cool information. Okay, so we've launched the website and we're kind of watching it. The next thing is maintenance, and maintenance sounds bad because it says fix. Well, okay, maintenance really isn't fixing things. Maintenance is really talking about always making changes, because darn well, as soon as you put the website out there, the day you publish, somebody's going to say, oh, but wait, we've changed our mind. We need to have this now. Yeah, it's going to happen non-stop. So you don't ever let your team go, okay? You don't say, okay, we're done. Now disband the team. You guys can run off and go do something else now. Particularly that content manager person. Yeah, you need to be able to have a vestigial part of this team still around to be able to make these changes. So, constant need of updates. Constant. And I'll tell you what, the content manager job, the thankless job in this entire thing, is calling people on the phone and sending them emails saying, hey, it looks like your section of the web page is kind of out of date. Could you update me with some stuff? And it's like pulling teeth. You can never get them to respond. Okay, so maintenance. The next one is the evaluation. So on page 462, did you accomplish what it is you start out to do in step 1? If you were expecting, maybe you wanted, exposure, maybe you wanted 22% increase in sales, whatever it is the goal was, did you do what you were supposed to do? Did you accomplish the goal? Okay. So those are the things. And then, of course, it just continually goes through. This thing never stops. Some people talk about being a spiral. And the reason why it's a spiral is maybe your website is just so huge that you can't do everything all at once. So you do like the shopping cart piece. And then you come back with a graphical view of the products. Maybe you want to do like 3D rotation on something. So you add that, and then you go through it a third time. You just over and over and over. It's still the same website. It's just you're taking small chunks of it and running it through this entire cycle over and over again. Okay. So now we're ready to change the subject, talk about the domain registration system on page 462. Actually, believe it or not, this is probably out of order. Most likely, this step here should be your absolute number 1 step in the entire process. And I'll tell you why as soon as we come back.